Hey everybody, continuation, part two of me teaching myself how to do Python. I am building, basically I'm automating the Mythic Game Master Emulator. I do own, I believe, except for a couple of the magazines Tana prints out, I have pretty much every tool. In fact, I even have her role playing roles. I never really used those. The emulator and I have another book over here. I think this is it. The Adventure Crafter. I use that one too, but those two are the ones I use the most. So what I did do is I changed this from action to subject just to make it a little more easier for, if somebody's reading my garbled code. Okay. So we got print that, input the roll again. So that's pretty much the end of the event function. We could probably, let's event. Let's see if it'll run. Control and then F5. Python file. Oh, it's because I'm an idiot. Right? See that? That's the one thing you gotta be cognizant of, right? Is spacing. It's one of the things I hate about the language, and it's actually one of the things I love about the language. So now we should be able to step through, right? And now you're gonna see us, and then here we go. And how do we break out of that? So there you go. So it basically rolled the dice and it's telling us care, jealousy. Um, it gives us the roll. Oh, okay. So you say that's she be, or maybe your code's male. He should be working. Okay. So we got the event taken care of. So let's do the next one. The next one is, odds list. It's how I spelled it. And we're not going to pass it nothing. And so that's our odds list. Okay. And so we're going to say for I. Now, I to me seems to be, what is that? Odd. In enumerate odds, and then comma start equals 1. We gotta do that, and then basically print. And remember that F, I forget what it means, but basically it tells us it's going to replace something within the string that we're setting up here. It's a very handy little thing. Otherwise, you got to do way more complex. You'd have to do string space plus string, space plus variable, space plus string, you know, to end it. So it's a little more, I don't know, oh, that's less. So print. And we're gonna do, what is it? I. Is that a comma or, nope, it's a period. Yeah, oh yeah, because what I'm formatting here. And then odd. And then close the string. Print, boom, 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 and we got to add. There we go. See, the colors are really helpful. So what this is going to do is just going to print, you know, the number. So we're enumerate. So that's a function you're going to use a lot. Okay, so basically what you do is basically you're going to take the odds, which has been defined up here, I believe. Right? And it's going to go through each of these. So this is part of the menu that we're doing where we're going to ask you to choose one of them. So it's going to go through this. So the cool thing about this is if I had this thing all hard-coded without using this list object, then say anytime I added or changed one of these, I'd have to go through all this code. So that's why these types of things, these lists and these arrays are very helpful. It lets you write code that is easier to maintain, but it also does code that makes it much more easy to, you know, execute and read and update, refactor. So it helps you a lot. So we got the odds lists, right? So now this is where we're going to do the real thing. Okay, we got to go all the way back here. This, and you don't have to use this in what is it? Pass, I think. Yeah. Okay, so pass just skips us when you execute it. So we kind of use this as a placeholder. So we're going to come back, we're going to write that code, but this way if I executed this, I'm not going to get a, we want to take out the, we don't want to, we'll take out the breakpoint. Okay, so let's stop debugging. Let's run without debugging. So basically it skips that. Now if I take this out, right, I'm going to get an error when I run. See? Because it's like what? You know, you're saying define something, but that define has no contains nothing. You know, you're passing it. Think of functions as kind of like baskets or little factories, right? They do work. And so if you don't put anything in there, you have an empty factory. And what happens to an empty factory? Well, you know, people come in, they bust the windows, they spray paint the walls, and you have nothing but problems. It's kind of the same thing. So this is useful. One of the things I like to do is I'll go in back, you know, when I first learned how to program in school, you had, you know, you wrote pseudocode. And the pseudocode was basically the logic of your program written in a way, a specific way, but it wasn't done in the language. So I kind of took that, because you got to remember the first, besides basic, the first professional languages I learned to do was basically Pascal and then COBOL, right? And when you did COBOL, you had to write all this pseudocode out, by hand. You had this special tablet. You also had a special tablet that, it was X's, and you would use that to write what the output's going to look like. And then if you were doing a screen program, you had another tablet. And so you would write all this out. So when I was in school learning it, before I was allowed to write a line of code in COBOL for a program, I had to take my pseudocode and the professor had to look it over. So you take your pseudocode, you take your outputs, right? So I kind of picked up that habit. I normally use it in, say, rim statements, the remark statements. So when I'm first writing a program, I'll kind of put in, logic like, I'll say setup. So this will be my setup section, right? I'll say, get Bob, give Bob. And then that becomes, just kind of a map of what I'm going to do. Okay. Well, this lets you do it instead of remark. You could actually go in there and create your functions, your classes, and it won't throw errors, so it's kind of nice if okay, I'm going to have a function that does this. Well, you go ahead, create the function, and then you just put pass in there, and you can come back later on and put data in it. When you're doing test-driven development, a lot of times, you write some code, you write a test. You write some code, you write a test. So basically, the code you write is the bare bones of what it'll do to accomplish this, right? And so, say I want an object that's going to return my name. So you call the object, you pass it a string, and it'll return my name, right? So the first thing I do is I would hard code that. And then I'd write a test. Okay, the test is green. Then I'd write, well, what's a test I could write to make sure that hasn't been hard coded? So then you'd write another test, and it would fail. So you'd have to go in there and now turn that, default hard-coded string in there to actually grab something from a database or this or that. So this is helpful in how we do this kind of development anymore. Okay. So basically, we're going to just accept that, and we're going to put a pass here. And now if we F5, we should have a problem. Don't know. Yeah, see, so it works. Okay. So let's come back up here and let's actually do with main that we want to do with main. Now, I will tell you one of the things that I do when I create a main is I'll put in here. I mean, you can find it, but I'll do main loop, something like that to stick out. I do a lot of this in my remarks when I'm talking high level, and then I'll use, more detail. And that's kind of how I do my, so let's come in here and let's do main. So we're going to get rid of this pass. Okay, and we're going to need a couple of die. Die 1, and I'm going to set it to equal 0. This way, each time this loops, I'm going to start with a new die number, right? Die is going to be good to go. So I don't have to worry about, make it a little nicer looking. And that was something I learned in Pascal. Pascal, how the code looked was as important as how it functioned. I really love that language. I mean, I would just sit there and, oh no, I'm a moron again. Okay, do that. Gotta go to the end. Okay, so now, you know, I'd put a little thing, roll dice. All right, so what are we gonna do? Well, die 1 equals random dot randent. No. And this is going to be the 10-sided dice. So we're going to say 1 to 10. And we're going to do, oh, what am I doing? So that right there is our first dice. Okay. So remember, we're using 2d10 to determine the percentile dice we need. And we're going to turn the dice representing the if you get a 10, we're going to make that a 1, right? Because we don't want the number we're going to make to be, say if I roll a 10 and I roll a 5, we don't want it to be 105. We want it to be 15 to represent 15%. So we're going to be basically if, and there's probably a better way I can do this. Die 1 equals 10, and then, oh, my alarm's going off. Yes, very professional. Okay, so I got, my fingers are jacked up because of the MS, and so sometimes I hit the if die 1 equals 10, and then we're going to say die 1 equals 1. Okay, and that's how, you know, you broke out of the if. And then we're going to say die 2 equals, same thing we're going to do. And we're going to say die 2 equals 1. So we're going to do the same thing. Die 2 equals 10. Die 2 equals 1. Okay, so we just rolled the dice. So now we're going to say, we're going to check, we got to know if we're going to run an event or not. Remember? So remember, if we roll doubles, an event happens. So we're going to say if die 1 equals die 2, we're going to call the event. And we're going to say roll equals, and we're converting it to strings, but we'll convert it back. Die1 plus str die2. Okay, so what this does is we're taking a variable roll, and we're going to smush those two together. So now if I didn't put string here, die1 plus die2, say I got a 1 and a 5, it's going to be 6, right? Because it's numbers. So I want to smush the two together. So first I convert them to strings. So that means roll is going to be a string. But if I need to do mathematical, or I just convert it back, right? I would just put, heck, you could probably put it right here, you know, int. But if I did it now, it would throw an error. But if I'm using it later and I need it as an integer, I just turn it into an integer. It's not a big thing. Okay? So basically what we do at the beginning is we just roll the dice, see what happens. Is it going to be an event? If it's not an event, okay. If it's not an event, we do and remember, we're still in the main loop, so we're going to do the menu, okay? And again, this would normally be one that I do like menu, right? So it sticks out. That's why I do it. I think it looks nice and it sticks out. And normally, if I'm doing it in a professional environment, the asterisks will be the exact same number. And I'll take up, you know, basically a little more of the screen. I want you to really see it when, you know, for the guys that I'm coding with, right? So we're going to say, we're going to print our menu now. And this is just going to be Mythic Game Master Emulator. Right? That's all this is going to be. We're just gonna print this out. Now you could do another one, print out lines if you wanted. You know, you could make it fancy, do whatever you want. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to know. Remember, in order we've rolled the dice, but in order to see the results. And normally, if you're using it by the book, the first thing you're gonna do is a chaos factor, and then the thing, and then you're gonna roll the dice. But because I want to know if an event's happening when they're getting ready to do it, I roll the dice first, okay? Because they don't know they're not gonna know what I rolled. So they're not going to be able to, on the fly, unless an event happens, on the fly, try to manipulate it, right? Because you got to be honest when you're using an Oracle system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, and remember, use variable names. Take the little extra time. You know what I'm saying? And use a variable name. If you got to type an extra 3 letters, it's fine. Because I look at this, it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be the input value of the chaos level. You know, you could put chaos level, you could put chaos, you could put CI, you could put whatever you want, okay? It doesn't matter. But I like to make it to where it's easy for me to read and other people, right? So now what we're going to do, see, I hit that again. And input. What is your chaos factor? I think that's right. Yep. Check it over here, because remember, I already written this. You know, if I would have done it on the fly, I mean, it took me a day and a half to actually write this code and get it ready, things like that. I doubt you would have wanted to watch, you know, a 5-hour video. Okay. So what we're doing is we're saying, oh, we want to add this. We got to give you a little bit of guidance, right? So 1 through 9. So we're giving you a little bit of guidance. That's what we want you to put in there. Now people will put in whatever, or, you know, we'll fiddle with that later. Okay. We're gonna check that input though, right? If chaos input is smaller than 1, right? Or you could have an and here too, or chaos input is greater than 9, right? We're going to say print you need to enter a number greater than 0 or less than 10. Right, so as long as they put a number in there, it won't blow up. Now, later on, we're going to put try-catch blocks, or the Python version. I don't know what that is. But we're going to put little blocks around the code when people input stuff to make sure, one, that they don't do anything evil, you know, like try to pop in their binary object of 2 gigabytes, you know, because that's how you know, hose people's servers and things like that. But this is going to run on my desktop. I'm going to be the only person ever running this, unless you're copying along and you decide to do it. Okay. So the second thing I want to do is I'm telling them, okay, you did a bad thing, but we're going to give you another shot at it, right? So we're going to basically just duplicate that code, but with a slight difference, right? Making sense? Re-enter. How do I spell re-enter? Oh. Chaos factor between 1 and 9. So we're gonna kind of say, dude, you know, what's your problem, right? And we forgot the input statement here. And then we gotta close it, and we should be good. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so basically we're gonna check it. If it's not the right thing, we're gonna send it back. Next thing we're gonna do now is we're gonna do that. We're gonna print that odd list, right? And now we're gonna say we're gonna have one we call menu choice. Equals int to make sure that they're inputting an enter. Choice. I don't like how I wrote that. Enter odds choice number let them know not to type in the whole ding dang choice, right? And then we're going to say odds choice equal int no, we're not doing that one. Equals, we're actually gonna odds, and then there we go, odds, and we're gonna say menu choice, and we're gonna say -1. Okay, so the -1 is the first one's going to be 0. So if I put a 1, you know, it just, you'll get the wrong thing. So we're basically going to, you know, put in this odds choice, the verbiage from menu choice, right? So you're putting in a 5, and then I'm going to go to this list, right? And I'm going to get that first one or the fifth one or whatever, and I'm going to populate it with that word. So we're getting close here, people. We're getting close. Now we're going to say chaos factor equals chaos input. I don't like running code directly across, you know, from the variable that they populated. Okay. And we're going to say result equals, now we're going to call that method fate check, or that function, right? And we're going to say odds choice, and we're going to say comma, we're going to say 77. Oh, that's we're going to put roll here instead. I had that hard coded. And then we're going to say chaos factor. I was doing some testing. Okay, so we're going to run a fate check, and that fate check is going to come. Let's double check this. No, here it is, def fate check. So we're going to pass it, you know, chaos factor, the odds, and it's going to go and get us the data. And let's make sure roll in main. Yes, so we're going to have to pass this back. We're going to have to make this an int. See? So there we go. So we're going to get that result. I'll come down here to look back at my code. And I could have just put the code up and went through it line to line, but I don't think that would have been as fun for you as what I did. Okay. So now we're going to print the result of this. Right. And plus result. and that's just going to print out the result. And then we're going to say print. We're going to also let them know what the roll was. Your roll and plus roll should be fine. Okay, so that's the end of. Oh, let's put pass again. Let's double check. We should be fine. Yep, we're fine. Okay. Some errors wouldn't show up there, but if you did like a really bad thing, it would. So we're gonna say, is this running equals true? Now you got to do capital T on the first one. So we're setting up a variable. This is I don't have this working yet, but this is going to allow me to escape out of it, right? So we're saying running's true, and then we're going to say while running. Okay, so like I said, while running, as long as that equals to true, this code's going to run. Okay? And the only thing we're really going to do here is we're going to call main. So this, and you don't have to have the main, you don't have to have this, but basically anytime you run it, right, it's gonna do this first. And it's going to say the primary function is that main function. While running equals true, so technically within here, I could basically, pass running into main, do the work, turn it to false, and then boom, it would execute or something like that. Okay, so let's control S to save. Let's F5. Let's see if we got a working program. So it's asking what is our chaos factor. So remember, it's already rolled the dice. So we didn't get doubles, right? So let's see what happens. Let's see. The first time we're running it, oh, we're going to want a space there, right? Oh, we're not. It's not fully executing. So let's see what's happening here. Stop debugging. Let's go into main, right? And let's put this, and let's do a little, see what happens here. Okay, so we're in main. See, we just equals 0. Now we're going to roll the first die, F11. See, now that's worth random number between 1 and 100. So that's part of my problem. So let's fix that. This should be a 10. Okay. So let's F5 it again. And we're going to go F11, F11. So die 1 is 1, right? So that means it's not going to execute this because it's a 1. All right, so it skips over that. We go to the second one. Right now it equals 0. Right now it equals 2. So it's going to be 12%, right? It's checking if they're the same. It's not. So now it's going to create this variable called roll, which equals 12. It's a string, right? We're going to now print out, see, Mythic Game Master Emulated, and we're going to ask for an input. So this is where we're gonna come back. And so now the chaos input equals 8. So let's see what happens. Huh. So it escaped. So let's get rid of this. Let's come down here. Now the easy way to fix it would be to take the program I wrote. See, this is the program I wrote. You know, and just to show you, it does run. And let's say 5. And then it shows the list, right? So let's take 7. And then it says your result is a yes, your roll was a 78. And it asks you to choose another chaos factor. Right? So, okay, somewhat likely this thing. And it says no. My result's a no. Okay, so let's pretend I'm listening at a door. Do I hear anything? Is the question I'd ask. I'd say, you know, chaos factor's 5. We just started. I'm going to say it's probably 50-50, right? No, I didn't hear anything at the door. Okay, well, I'm going to see, is the door open? Chaos factor's 5. And we're going to say maybe it's unlikely. Or 50-50 or somewhat likely. And no, the door's not. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. An event popped up. An event popped up. It's saying PC negative. Action is lie, anger. So since I know a negative thing's going to happen when I go to check the door, maybe the door's trapped. So that what I'd say, oh, okay, the door's trapped. You know, and then I'd roll on a trap chart, you know. So that's kind of how you would use this. So let's go back here and figure out what is going on. So let's come here. So this, I think, is where we were having the problem. So let's say chaos input or greater than 9. Print unique chaos equals int. Odds list. Menu choice equals that. So it looks good. So let's stop debugging. Let's run it again. 6. So if chaos input, which is 6, so it's not smaller than 1, and it's not greater than 9. Chaos input tells you right there equals that. So why am I not? Right, so let's do this. Let's put this here. Let's put that there. Right, and I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to say if chaos equals 6. Make it 5. Okay, so run that. Let's say 5. So chaos input equals 5. Okay, so we just got an event, so that's cool, right? We got release illusion NPC action. So you, depending on what you're doing, you'd have to figure out the contents, right? So say I was fighting a wizard or say I was a wizard and I had cast whatever, dancing lights, and then I got this, I'd know, okay, dancing light, something happened, right? I slipped, and so I lost concentration, and dancing lights no longer. You have to figure out what it's going to be. Okay, so we hit enter to roll again. Chaos factor is going to be 9. This is crazy. So now what I would do is basically kind of what I'm doing right now, right? So we got to come here again. Yeah, okay. So what's going on is so this is where we got a little bit of a problem, right? So, and this again goes down into the whole formatting thing. So if I look here on my code, yep, so that's what I did wrong. See, where it is matters. So this is telling it so basically it was running the stuff I wanted it to run outside of this if loop, but because it was spaced over 1, it was running it here, right? So basically every time it was either gonna skip this and keep going back to this, right? Skip this, go back to that, skip this, or it would skip this, go into this one, and then it would do it. So now let's Control S, F5. I always forget to stop. So let's bring this up more. My hands don't work that good. Okay, so my chaos factor, we're just starting off at say 5, and then boom. Okay, so we're going to say this is impossible. Oh, we got an exception. Int is not iterable. Okay, so one of the things I'll do, just so that doesn't happen, right, is I'll add a breakpoint, and then I'll come in here, stop debugging. So let's bring this back down so we can look at it. Where's our breakpoint? There's our breakpoint. So if odds choice. Okay, so we're up in fate check. So I must have had a typo up here. Let's look, fate check, line 40. Oh, there we go. I was on autopilot. And results no. So yep, there we go. Let's take out our breakpoint. And the good thing about this is when you make these, this is where you're learning. when you're making these typos or you're making mistakes, it forces you to go back over your code and check it, and those things like that, those are hard to catch. Where I typed in a duplicate, right? So basically what was happening is chaos values was a list of the chaos, object. So there was I was trying to enumerate it. So I was saying, if this number is in this list or at this list, do this. And so since I put the two the same, right? I had chaos factor in here. It was saying, well, it can't go through that because this only had one value and this is a collection of values. So let's try now. So we'll say chaos factor of 2. We're going to say likely, and result is no. What's my chaos factor? Okay, we're going to say it's still 2. Oh, this has to be, right? This has to be. No. Because remember, in this, the lower the chaos factor, the less likely you're going to get a yes. Because normally, yes escalates, right? So, it might just be sometimes you're just unlucky, and you just keep getting low numbers. But let's see what the number is. Okay, so 0, 0. So what's this die? That's a 10. So you're gonna see this happen. So die equals 1. What's this one? So that's a low number. So that's gonna be 16. So roll's going to be 16. And then we're going to say 9. And then we're going to say, we're going to check that, which will be fine. Now we're going to do the odds list. All right, so let's shift out of this one. And then there's the lot. Right, and then we're going to say input your menu choice. And we'll say has to be 11 again. And then we F11, so odd choice is has to be. Right, so that's work. And then we're going to run into the fake check. Right, so has to be. So odds choice has to be. So let's come in here. Let's go F11. So here's the chaos values. So yeah, it's just a low number. Okay, so that's one of the things you can flip. I created once this when I was teaching myself how to do PHP years ago. I built like a game. And it was called Heads or Tails game. Now, at the time, I had like a 10-year-old daughter. And I have a lot of female friends. One of the things that I found out was, a lot of hot chicks like to think that they're, magical back in the day, that they're... Because of Stevie Nicks, they were all witches and they were all psychic and stuff. And so I made a game where you would make a guess, heads or tails, simple, right? Then you flip the coin, and if you were right, it would give you like an encouraging message. It would say, "Oh, you're so good. You're so awesome. You must be magical." And then they would ask him again. And the goal was to see how many in a row you could guess. And then it had like a list that whoever with the highest ones would put their little name up there. And it was funny. My daughter and her friend, they love playing this stupid thing. I mean, to me, it was barely a game. It really wasn't. But I had all kinds of little bits and pieces. I had this lady I know make a really nice graphic. I had logos made, all that. And I put it up online, and there used to be a site you could go and sell websites. So basically I got it up to where it was getting about 5,000, 10,000 hits a month. There was a lot of little girls playing it, right? I didn't see nobody else, just like my daughter and her friends, and and it was like, basically test if you're psychic, blah, blah, blah. But I will say there were times that you would see in the high score that 30 people guessed it. But there was a couple times where one of the things I did on the back end was to track how many times in a row did the same thing come up. Because I thought this was, probabilities was interesting. And so I would look at the data, and there was a lot of times you would get 20, 22 heads or tails all in a row. It's when you're talking like this kind of, randomness, a lot of times you just might go through a spell where you're getting a lot of no's. But so I'm going to put this is the one I'm going to put up on Get, and I'm going to put a link in it. And if y'all want to look at the code or play around with the code, make the code better. And the way it is right now, it'll just run one time. I can make it, we could put that, get rid of it, put that. If we want it to, that way it'll run over and over again. So that's one of the things. If you only want it to run once, let's put that here. If only wanting to roll once, remove the next line and fix placement of main. So come here, I'm gonna finished. So it's up there. I'll put a link. Right now it's set to private. I'll set it to be public. And if you guys want to fiddle around with it, if it, one of the things I'd say is if you're going to use this, if you're actually going to use this, try to make it better or whatever, go buy it. I'm going to have a link to Tana Pigeon's, the exact same one I have, which is like $12. She has a newer version of Game Master Emulator, but I have, that's like the only thing of hers I haven't bought, except for like every couple months there's like a magazine, because she has a whole system. But this is genius. Her Oracle system is just genius. I think she's done a lot, because especially nowadays it's hard to find people to game with, and solo role playing, whereas you don't have the social aspect that you get with Dungeons and Dragons, which is a big part of the draw, but you do have the ability to play, learn the rules, and you can have fun. I mean, things slip out of hand and you're kind of brainstorming. So it's almost like you're letting your brain, you're becoming multiple people, because normally I'll role play 2 characters within it, right? There'll be an NPC, and I'll use the Oracle for a lot of the NPCs. Not all, things that seem reasonable based on who the NPC is, he's going to do that, right? But so I'll use the Oracle to control. Say I'm a wizard, well, I'm going to have a paladin or a fighter with me. Say I'm a cleric, I might have a thief with me. So that'll be, if I'm a thief, anybody else is going to be the NPC. Thief, you can possibly get through without anybody's help. But, so that's what I'll do. I learned a lot doing this. I really did. I'm kind of blown away that I was actually able in such a short period of time get this thing running. You know, I'm very surprised. Oh, we had an event. So new NPC. So basically, ambush tension, new NPC, the way I would interpret that is, okay, I've just been ambushed and it's going to be a new NPC. So then I would roll up or find a new NPC. And that's like when like ChatGPT is helpful in role playing, because you could sit there and say, you know, it knows what level character you are, and you can say, I was just ambushed by a new NPC, create one for me. So he might create a thief or a brigand or a fighter or whatever, and you could tell it what's the stats. So now you got that NPC, you copy and paste it. You keep a Word document is what I do. So I'll have a Word document just for NPCs in the game, and I'll have a number against them. So again, when I get one, if I get an event that says, you know, returning NPC, I go to that Word document, I roll a dice. Say if I got 100 of them, well, then I roll a percentile dice, and that's the one that comes back into the game. If it doesn't make sense, you know, say you're being ambushed and you're in a dungeon and it's a traitor, you know, well, the odds are probably not really that great that the traitor. Now, if I was out on the streets and got ambushed by a guy who was one of the shopkeepers, well, then I assume the guy's hitting me up on the street trying to sell me something. You know, hey, I got some goods for it. So I would role play that all out. So this is very helpful. And I will be doing a video how I do the solo gaming. So when I normally do the videos, like when I'm in the hospital, I'll roll the dice, do the whole chart, things like that. I'm going to use this in the future. But a couple things I'm going to do is right now it's just no, yes. I'm going to add the extreme no and extreme yes, because I think sometimes that's meaningful. I tend to ignore it a lot. And I think I'm gonna learn one of the graphical interface libraries next, in order to make a nice little sorry, I say all the time. I'm gonna make a nice little presentation layer for it. So I think that would make it a little more enjoyable for me and for other people. So when I do that, if I do that, I'll pop that up there. I did get a really cool book. It's the second time I bought the book. The book was primarily written by AI, but it's on creating a text adventure, but it's like $5. I will say, I started running through the book like 5 years ago because I was going to teach myself Python then, and there was a lot of errors in the code. But I think I've learned enough now where it'll be easier for me to debug those. And again, in my experience, you learn so much more by failure. You know, figuring things out. You know, just like, oh, well, that's what it is. Because I got to train myself to understand these indent blocks better. You know, because like I said, I'm used to functions that you explicitly close the function, right? That you send, that there's a return method always. Here, the only time there's a return, you know, it would be a return but a null object, right? So it would say, boom. So you know, this is where that ends. This is where the next code begins. In Python, it's about the formatting. So as you saw, I'm like all hosed up because everything was one tab over, you know, more than it should have been. So it was falling under this if condition. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm rambling. You all have a great day. Bye-bye.